Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Better Bots. Today we're going to be talking about sending massive amounts of emails for almost free. Now, if you've ever done any kind of mass email marketing, trying to send thousands of emails, you've probably felt like this, super frustrated and confused. There's tons of different providers out there like Mailgun, SendGrid, MailChimp, even AWS has a service, and Sendinblue does as well. And if you've ever used any of these services, you probably spent hours upon hours going through their tutorials, their support documentation, trying to understand what these acronyms even mean and how to get it all set up. And even if you do, once you do, it can turn out to be pretty expensive. So is there a better way? Is there another way that you can send massive amounts of emails confidently, efficiently, and most importantly, cheaply? Today, we're going to be going over how to use OAuth 2.0, Google Cloud Functions, and Gmail API to actually send pretty much as many emails as you want for very, very cheap. In fact, we're talking about up to 1 billion emails per day that you can send. So we're not talking about just little small blasts. We're talking about massive amounts of emails. So the solution we're going to use today is going to be tied together with INTEGROMAT. We're going to do a little bit of custom coding to make it so that we can have the most cost-efficient solution. If a lot of this is going over your head, if you're not super technical, don't worry. You really only need to have 2 skills to do this entire thing, and that is copy and paste. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get Now, fair warning, this method is pretty labor intensive. It does require a little bit of code, a little bit of copy and paste, and basic technical understanding of what's going on in the Google Cloud side. So you might be wondering, why is it worth it? Why would I do all that work when there's simpler solutions? Well, let's take a look at our usage limits here. So our usage limits for Gmail API are actually daily. So these are daily instead of monthly. And you can see that you have 1 billion quota units per day for your application. And that's 250 quota units per user per second. So these are insanely high limits. And even farther than that, if you look at what the quota units are, the Gmail API quotas can be really hard to read sometimes when you're trying to understand if you're going to pass it. But basically 250 quota units per second and 1 billion per day. If you look at what the quota units are down here under messages.send, it's 100 messages per quota unit. So both of these limits are times 100. So 250 times 100 emails that you can send per user per second on a moving average. So you can even have short bursts that go faster than that. So if you're wanting to send millions of emails per month, maybe even per day, given these quota limits, this method will allow you to use the API to have really simple and short requests that scale as much as you can probably get it to scale. So that's the first argument. And then, of course, there's also the pricing of Cloud Functions. So if we look at Google Cloud Functions pricing, it's a little bit confusing, but basically you just need to know that the first 2 million per month are free. So if you're sending emails and you want to count each email as a request, or even a request and a half to give yourself a buffer, you're talking close to 2 million or over 1 million emails per month that you can send via Google Cloud Functions for free without paying for anything. And then beyond 2 million, it's 40 cents per million. So you're really not going to find much cheaper solutions for sending emails, especially using traditional SMTP providers. So using API can be significantly cheaper in that aspect as well. So looking at Cloud Function pricing in a little bit more detail, just make sure we cover all the pricing. So yes, the first 2 million are free, the invocations themselves, but there's also a compute time cost. And you can see it's kind of hard to read. It's based off of how long your requests themselves actually take. There's all these different tiers. So most people are going to be at this one by default. And I believe it's the 648 one. So to try to make some sense of this, I actually did a little bit of math. So let's see what that looks like given how many emails we want to send per month. So the pricing shows about 0.000000648 per 100 milliseconds of operation time. And when I did my testing earlier, it came out to be about 500 milliseconds per email sent. This is just based off of the total emails that I sent and how long the operation took. So that comes out to about 0.0000324 per email. So 100,000 emails for reference is about 32 cents, and 1.5 million emails is about $4.86 just for the cloud function itself. All right, so there are a few important steps to get this, and luckily we only have to do this once. It is a little bit of a headache, but don't worry. As long as you follow along with this, go back as much as you need. We'll get through it, and you'll be set up. You can do it as many times as you need to. So let's go ahead and see. The first site that we need to have open is developers.google.com/Oauth Playground. I'll have it in the description down below. And then the next place we need to go is console.cloud.google.com. Now, if you have not set up a Google Cloud Platform project yet, pause the video, go through the process, make sure you're logged in with a G Suite account if you can. If it's a personal account, you can use a personal account, but a lot of this might not work because you need an actual business account. So make sure you select a business account with Google Cloud Platform, use your business domain, and then set up a brand new project. So I'm actually going to go here. I'm going to set up a brand new project so you can see what it looks like from scratch. So this is going to be demo Gmail. I'm going to call this. I'm going to choose my organization. Great. So now I've got a brand new project. It might take a second to create, but once it's done, now I'm in a brand new project. No API should be enabled or anything like that. So let's do a couple of things first. First thing we need to do is let's go set up some APIs. So let's go to APIs and services. In case you didn't see that, navigation menu up here at the top, APIs and services on the left. Let's go to library and let's enable some APIs. First one, of course, is going to be Gmail, since that's what this whole tutorial is all about. So let's go here and let's enable that Gmail API. And you will need to have billing enabled for some of these APIs to be able to be enabled. So if you need to do that, make sure you go grab your credit card, pause the video, come on back after you have that added. It'll automatically take you back to where you need to go. So Gmail's good. We also need to do cloud functions. It's very important. So we're going to enable Google Cloud Functions. And this is the one I think specifically that requires billing. If you don't have billing enabled yet, it will require you to add a credit card or some form of payment. Great. This one is now done. Let's do one more. Let's go back to APIs and services, library, and now let's go on to cloud build. This is just dependency of cloud functions. It is required. Sorry, I misspoke. This is the one that will actually require billing if you don't have billing enabled yet. It's 0.003 minutes of build time. I don't even think we're going to use that because we're only going to deploy once. So we'll only need to build once. So you shouldn't have to worry about it too much, but feel free to read the pricing information on your own if you need. So those are the three APIs we need to enable. That is done. Let's go back and under the same tab, APIs and services, let's go to dashboard. Let's go to our OAuth consent screen. That's the first thing we're going to have to do. Let's click internal because this is only going to be for us. We don't need anybody else to be able to use this. And let's click create. Now under this, I'm just going to call this Gmail bulk sending. I'm just going to put my email here. And for this, you can also just put your own email. So I'm going to put my email here, which is just the support email. And then we are going to need some scopes. So let's click on add or remove scopes. Go here to the filter and let's just click Gmail API and click that. It'll pull up all of our scopes that we need to add. So we do need Gmail, mail.google.com. We need that. Let's go ahead and get compose, and let's go ahead and get read only so we can read stuff as well if we want. And the most important one, of course, is going to be send. So let's get authgmail.send. So update that. It's going to add all this stuff here, save and continue. And back to dashboard. Now we have our OAuth consent screen configured. No worries. Everything's good. Let's go to credentials. Now we are going to create a set of credentials. So let's click create credentials. Let's go to OAuth client ID. That's what we're going to be building here. Application type is going to be web application. Web client one, let's change that to bulk Gmail send. Same name as the other one. Should be fine. Now for the add redirect URI. Let's go ahead and click there. And the URL you need is going to be that URL I told you earlier, developers.google.com/Oauth Playground. Now, one very important little quirk here, you cannot have an extra slash here, / at the end of this. It will mess up the redirect process. So make sure you don't have any slash there, and then click create. And once this creates, you're going to see a nice little OAuth client created page with your client ID and your client secret. So taking this client ID, going on over here, let's go to our settings in our developers playground. And actually I have a fresh one open over here. So let's go to our settings here. Let's use your own OAuth credentials. Let's paste our client ID. Don't worry, I'm going to delete this for all you want to be hackers out there. As soon as this is over, get your client secret, paste that there, and then close that. So now we have those, and let's just get the scopes we want. So let's go on down to Gmail, API v1, and we need google.com mail, we need compose, we need read-only, and send. We don't really need read-only right now for this function, so you don't have to request that if you don't want, but if you want to modify this later, it's a good scope to have. So let's authorize these APIs. It's going to take me to that OAuth 2 consent screen that we were hoping to get to. And I am going to choose the new account that I created. So give me 1 second. So once you choose your Gmail account, it'll tell you what permissions it's requesting. Click allow, and then we'll come right on back. So I took a little bit too long. You might get a not found. But if you do, you should still be able to exchange that authorization code for some refresh token and access token pair. Now, if that happens right here, if you get collapsed, just go back up here to step 2. And you'll have your refresh token and access token. Now, these are the 2 tokens that we are going to need for our Google Cloud Function environment variables. So let's go on back over there and see where to paste those in. So after we have our OAuth 2 client ID credentials created and exchanged a token for a refresh token, we're going to go ahead and come over here to the menu again. We're going to go down under serverless and go to cloud functions. Now, if you don't have any cloud functions created just yet, just click on create function. We're going to call that, you can leave it as first gen for now. For the function name, I'm going to call this Gmail bulk send. The region, just choose whichever one is closest to you. Make sure the trigger type is HTTP, and then allow unauthenticated invocations. Very important. So let's click save on there. And then we're going to have a few environment variables that we need to make sure that we set before we actually copy and paste all that code. So those environment variables, let me write them all out really quick and I'll show you where to find all of them. So all the environment variables we're going to need are client ID. And you can actually get all these from that OAuth 2 website you're just using. You already found them actually. So if you go up here to the settings again, you can just get your client ID here. You'll paste that in this value, client secret, get it from there as well. Just below it, paste that there. Redirect URI, you can actually use the URI of this page here, just without the code. Don't put the code part in there. So just put the playground URI just like that without the last slash. Remember, that'll mess it up. And then for access token, you'll just put exactly what you just got back in that request. So you'll put this. Don't worry if it's expired because our function is designed to go ahead and refresh it before you use it anyway. So we'll get that access token and the refresh token from there, and we'll paste them there and there. So that's all the environment variables we should need. And you can also do a couple of other things here if you are feeling a little confident. You can shorten the timeout or increase it. I think it has a max timeout of 60 seconds. No, sorry, 540 seconds is the max timeout. So that can help if you have like really, really high loads, like a lot of emails that you want to send. You can set that to 540 and it'll make it so you can not have to split your requests. And then for the maximum number of instances, you can leave this at 3,000, increase it, lower it. It doesn't really matter because the use case that we're using, it's only going to use 1, maybe 2 at a time. So once you have all those environment variables set, then we'll go ahead and go to the GitHub repo and we'll copy and paste the index and package.json files and get it deployed. So checking out this GitHub repo, you can find it at bulk Gmail API. And there's just 2 packages that you actually have to copy. So you just go to the index.js, go here first, and you'll take just this entire file here and just copy the whole thing. So we'll go ahead and copy this. And we'll paste that whole thing right there. So now we've got this whole thing pasted. And a very important step, make sure that we copy that send email name right there and we put it right there in send email in the entry point. It's a very important step. And then here on the package.json, all you'll have to do is just come on back to the main and go to package.json, and you'll just copy this whole package.json file right there. So we'll go ahead, add that in there, and you can change the author if you want. I'm just going to put this to dev, and there's only 2 dependencies that it needs, and this one, it comes with it anyway, but that's all you have to do. Just copy and paste that stuff right there, and as long as your environment variables are filled out like I showed in the last little section, then you can go ahead and just click deploy. And if this is your first time deploying a function, it's probably going to take quite a while, so I'm going to pause while this deploys, and then once it's done, I'll show you where to get the trigger URL from, where to place it in Integromat, and then how to test your new integration. So now that we have our cloud function fully deployed, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and come on in here, click into it, go to trigger tab right here. We're going to copy that to the clipboard, come on back to our Integromat scenario, and in the last module here, that's where we're going to end up placing that URL. So we'll have that URL placed there, and let's take a look at our overall Integromat scenario and what exactly we're doing here. So right now I just have it on a timer to basically go through our Google Sheet, look for all of the emails that we have in that Google Sheet from A1 to A. That Google Sheet is just a simple list of emails that we have. And then we're going to aggregate all of those into JSON, that JSON data structure. If you don't have one set yet, all you have to do is just click add, and it's just very simple. You just need one specification, one item, and this one item is going to be an array. So you're just going to put this to array, and then this type is going to be text, and the name, I just have it as email. So then once you have that set, you'll have your own data set that looks like this and has a place for you to put all of the emails that are being aggregated. And they'll show up right here in this email field. So we'll click OK to that. And then we want to get the content for the actual email that we want to send. So there's lots of different places that you can store all of this HTML data that you want to send, if you want to send HTML or if you want to just send plain text. It's totally up to you what the actual email data is that you're sending. For this example, I have something stored in Google Docs. In that Google Docs, it's just a simple just a simple Google Doc file that basically shows what an awesome time it is to be a developer right now. So very simple image, headline, all this stuff's got formatting and the font that I want, all that good stuff. So with Integromat, I can actually download that file as an HTML file. And so this will format that for me into an HTML file string. So I'll click OK, and then I have one more JSON aggregator to take all of those emails that I have, put them into an array called to, and then the subject is whatever I want the subject to be, and then the body is actually going to be the HTML data that's coming from the Google Doc here. So once I have all that saved, I'm going to send all of that in an HTTP post request to my cloud function here. And then my cloud function is going to receive the JSON string from my most recent JSON aggregator, that JSON module that came right before this one. And it's going to have all of the emails that I need to send it to, and the body that I want to send, and the subject that I want to send. So once this is saved, go ahead and save this. And don't worry, I'll link this actual scenario in the comments, or I'm sorry, in the description as well. So that way you can just import it yourself and change out all your credentials of where everything is stored. But for right now, let's go ahead and run it once, and let's just make sure that it worked. So let's go ahead and click run once. And there we go. It aggregates all the data, and it's going to send to that HTTP. And cloud functions can take a second, but they should eventually send you the response. So there we go. Now our scenario has just complete. So let's go to our cloud function, and let's check out what the logs say. So if we want to check the logs for our cloud function, we can go back to that main page where we got the trigger URL from, and you can just come right over here to the logs page. It'll take a second to load usually, but let's look here and we see, yep, sent. And so we have a sent response for every single email that we were trying to send. So let's see exactly what those emails look like. Perfect. So just a few seconds later, I got my email that I was expecting. It looks exactly how it looks in my Google Doc here. And it does look like it came from me, blogs@workwithdas.com. That is remember, that's the Gmail user that I used to authenticate when I did my Oauth Playground step here just a few minutes ago. So Now we have an email sent directly to me, and not only did it send to me, but it's sent to every other email in that spreadsheet that I have. So as that email list grows, I can keep doing this once a week, or as I need from Integromat, I can just fire this as needed as the Google Sheet gets updated and the list gets longer and longer. The cloud function will always be available, and you can just use it as needed to send out mass emails. And if we look at that email that we got, if we look in the details here, you can see I actually got standard encryption. So this means that it basically as if it came from me. So it did not come from Mailgun, wasn't signed by anybody else except me. It used my OAuth credentials to actually send on behalf of me. So that is definitely the ideal situation. We always want it to come from us rather than on behalf of a third party whenever possible. Because it just makes it feel more personal and increases your chances of actually getting to the inbox and getting to the top of the inbox. So there you have it. That is everything you need to actually send a bulk email using API, using the Gmail API, using Google Cloud Functions. And remember, the pricing that we talked about is very, very cheap, almost usually going to be free unless you have more than a couple million emails to send per month. You can use this as needed. And if the only limit that you really need to worry about is if you have more than 250,000 emails, then you will need to split the request up into two. And you can either do that in Integromat by making it so that you set a filter here to actually check the limit of the length of the array that this JSON has. And if it's greater than whatever, you can split it into 2 or 3 or however many you need. Or you can, if you know how, you can use some Node.js magic, modify it on the back end in that cloud function here to actually set up cloud tasks that'll run one after the other. And I will potentially make another future video on how to do that exactly and make sure that I update the GitHub repo with that code as well. But for now, this should be enough to get you going. You can use beautiful designs as much as you want. You can any kind of development or any kind of content creation that you can do here within Google Docs. Integromat will allow it to automatically be transferred to HTML. So you don't have to worry about doing any of that manually. And then our function will automatically change that HTML into the format that it needs to be in for Gmail API. So if you like this video, if you think this is helpful, please give me a like, a comment. Let me know any questions that you have, anything I could be more clear on, and I'll make some follow-up videos. But thanks so much for watching.